The Puck Portfolio with Andy MacNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio. I'm your host, Andy MacNeil. Today is Friday, March 15th, the Ides of March. Happy birthday, Dad. Welcome to the show. We are looking at a pretty lame slate for Friday night, but I've got my buddy Nick Martin here joining me right now to talk about Saturday's NHL odds. We'll touch on Friday's games quickly. Nick, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Happy to come on. Hope you're feeling all right. I know you're grinding a little bit today, but still excited to be here.
A little bit nasally, so we're not gonna stay on live too long today, but we'll dish out some bets. Of course, this show is sponsored by NorthStar Bets. They offer early odds on the next day's NHL games, which gives us a chance to talk about Saturday's games so far in advance and hopefully get down on some great early lines here. So you can check out NorthStar Bets via the link in the description below. Nick, we're going to get into a schedule breakdown really quick. If you've been here before, you know what you're looking at. The rest column tells you how many days rest teams have across the league heading into their games. The load column gives you a little bit more context, tells you whether a team is playing back-to-back, like the Ducks tonight in Winnipeg, or 4 games in 6 nights, like the Rangers tomorrow in Pittsburgh. But a busy weekend in hockey. Most teams have one day off heading into Saturday. Then you look ahead to Sunday, and a lot of teams playing back-to-back situations on Sunday. The Carolina Hurricanes playing 6 games in 9 nights. They're taking on the Ottawa Senators in Ottawa on Sunday. The Pittsburgh Penguins are playing 6 games in 9 nights when they host the Red Wings, who will also beyond the second half of a back-to-back. And then we got the Rangers. They're finishing off a pretty tough stretch of games, hosting the Islanders on Sunday, who will be on the second half of a back-to-back, but the Rangers playing their 6th game in 9 days. So lots of hockey to get to. We will get into my projections really quick before we start bullshitting on the games here. I want to quickly lock in a few picks, and I'm sure Nick feels the same because lines have been up for a little while now, so things could very well move. So I've got 3 plays. They're all going to be 1-unit plays, whether to win 1 unit or risk 1 unit. On the Sabres, I'm risking 1 unit at plus 110. I'm a little bit worried that this one could go the other way now that it looks like Dylan Larkin could be back in the lineup. He's at practice this morning, but I'm still going to risk it on the Sabres here. I think the key here is Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. He's been great. Detroit, I mean, Nick, you've talked about it a lot. Their underlying metrics have been dreadful. The Sabres, not a formidable opponent by any means, but since they beat the Red Wings pretty badly a few days back, they've beaten the Islanders, a big win for their playoff hopes, even though they're pretty slim. And the Red Wings went and lost another game to the Coyotes, this time on home ice. So what do you think about the Sabres, if whether or not Dylan Larkin is going to be in the lineup either way? Do you like this look here for the Sabres heading into Saturday, where they will try to hand the Detroit Red Wings their 8th straight loss?
Yeah, I'm right with you. I think the Sabres are great. The numbers that I'm seeing just came down a little bit, so hopefully they hold because, yeah, I think better than even money is great. Buffalo's been defending much better. They've been a really low event team, kind of contrary to what they were last year, really letting UPL just do his thing. So I'm right with you. I think this is a lot closer to just a coin flip. And the other one I was interested in that is also moving, I don't mind the under. It's a little scary in a Detroit game, but I view this as kind of a similar spot to where I like the under on Thursday night, where it's just 2 playoff teams. Detroit's got to get right. They've kind of hit a wall on all areas, but I feel like this is a good spot for them to just clean up their process and kind of insulate well. Buffalo's offense is still looking pretty capped too. They look, I think versus better teams, it still looks pretty stale. So I think 6.5 is just a touch high. I don't know. We'll see how the total moves, but I think that it's going to move towards 6. So I'm with you on both angles. I think that the Sabres and the under in what could be kind of a sneaky little grind of a game. I don't hate, I think if you're getting better than money and Larkin plays, I don't think it's like a horrible ticket. I think you just live with it. And, a lot of what's gone wrong for Detroit, and I think me and you had kind of talked about this. Larkin hurts a lot, but all of this was coming. This was it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. But their defensive play had been shaky, and I really feel like they were just a pure regression candidate. So who knows? Maybe we've seen the worst of it, but I think it's pretty tough to make a case for Detroit at the current numbers.
Yeah, early a couple of months ago, maybe earlier this season, you'd kind of be able to kind of bank on the Red Wings maybe being able to outscore their problems a little more. But like you said, they've been struggling. The Sabers haven't been great on offense, but I think the gap has closed a lot here. And then you consider how UPL's been playing. Detroit, they've scored. They've only scored more than 3 goals. Uh, they haven't actually scored more than 3 goals in a game during this losing streak, and they've been held to 2 or fewer goals in 4 of those games, including 2 shutouts. So
And
things
soft
not
matchups too.
yeah,
Like
soft
some
matchups.
soft matchups in there.
For sure. So yeah, I like the Sabres plus 110 or better for a one unit play. Obviously, kind of scale down as you get closer to the plus 105 kind of cutoff there, but that'd be a pretty small bet at that point. I think this one, like Nick said, is a coin flip, even if Larkin is in the lineup. The other bet that I have. The Nashville Predators. Look, I think the Preds are playing their best hockey of the season right now. They're good in all situations. They're getting great goaltending again from UC Saros, which I think is a big thing. But they're the number 2 offensive team behind Toronto since the All Star break, or since the start of February. Sorry, and I think that's really going a long way for them right now. No team has been worse than Seattle offensively during that stretch either. So, pretty bad matchup for the Kraken. I think I like the Preds at minus 110 or better for one unit as well.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I kind of feel like the Kraken, if anything, get a little underrated at times. Like they're still such a good defensive team, but like this price just seems way too hard to pass up. I think Nashville's offensive upside is just so far beyond what the Kraken can offer right now. So yeah, right with you on this one.
For sure. So that one is available. Both of those bets, Buffalo plus 110 and Nashville minus 110, available at NorthStar Bets. I believe Nashville probably a little bit more widely available than Buffalo plus 10, because I think I saw that FanDuel had Nashville minus 110. Finally, this one is only going to be available at NorthStar Bets. I think it's a great price. Hopefully, it's still sitting there. It'll be interesting to see how these move over the next 20 to 30 minutes while we're live here. But I like the Edmonton Oilers. They're in action against the Colorado Avalanche. And this one is sitting at minus 119 at North Star Bet Rivers in the United States. And I guess in Canada as well. FanDuel, though, minus 130. I think a lot of other books are going to open up. We've got some of these far away books opening up at minus 125. So I don't think you're going to get a better price than minus 119. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would suspect this one closes closer to minus 130 ish. I think it should be around minus 135. Of course, we're going to probably find out more about the Avalanche over these next couple of weeks after the moves they made at the trade deadline, etc. But I just don't think this team has been playing good enough for long enough to pass up this kind of short price on the Oilers. And I think, I'm not really worried about Matthias Ekholm. He missed Wednesday's game due to an illness, but that's a big gap in between. I'm sure he'll be back in the lineup on Saturday. Do you like the Oilers at that price, or is it just a pass regardless of what price you're getting based on what we're seeing here?
Yeah, for me, it's just a pass, which is maybe I'm like giving too much credit to what the Avs have done because I've been pretty low on them all year. But I really did like all their moves, and it does kind of feel like I'm a little scared of what they're becoming. I think they had some well below replacement guys playing too many minutes prior to these additions, and while Byram is really getting going for Buffalo, he wasn't doing that in Colorado. I think Walker's a really good fit. So I'm really excited to see the way this one goes, but I didn't quite have interest in a bet.
Yeah, for sure. Neither did I until I saw that opening price at North Star. I would not bet the Oilers at minus 130, which is what we're seeing at FanDuel, or really minus 125. I'm just kind of being baited in here, honestly, by those odds. So yeah, it's gonna be a busy weekend in the NHL. I don't think Nick has anything that he likes for Friday. Is that right, Nick?
No, no, I got on the Jets early because I thought it was a little short, but that's obviously moved a lot. So that's kind of the one there.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. What was that price, by the way?
It was puck line was minus 130.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
now minus 155. You'd
Yeah.
have to tell me the exact correlation of the money line there, but probably somewhere around minus 350.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting game. Obviously the Ducks, there or playing on, the second half of back to back here. But they haven't been this big of an underdog all season. It makes sense why, why they would be a big underdog in this game. They actually closed plus 308 on January 15th at Florida and won that game 5-4 in overtime. But one thing that kind of stuck out to me, and I, I don't want to I don't want to say to put too much stock into this. But I do think Nick brings up a good point where, given the move, especially with this puck line being at minus 150, I was kind of looking at that as one that, a lot of people are probably going to say, like, "Oh, I'll throw that in a parlay tonight." The Jets will probably get smacked, or the Jets will probably smack the Ducks, and they should. But I do see like a trend to the under in these games where there's a big favorite. So that's something to consider too, where you might not have that wide margin between the home and the away team. And Winnipeg, when they've been in this situation, they've been minus 200 or more favorite at home 8 times this season, and they've only covered the puck line 3 times in those games. So obviously, this game in particular is a little bit like it's sort of in its own league because this is the biggest edge, I guess, that the Jets have had on home ice versus a team. But I just think they've shown a bit of a penchant this season to kind of sleepwalk through these games. Some of the games they've come out and obviously smashed their opponent, but um, you know, small sample. But even in the 2 games they played, Chicago and San Jose, where those teams were, north of plus 300, and they only won those games by 1 goal. So yeah, Jets
Yeah, and
got
I'll
to get it
note
together.
part of it for me was, I guess I should say, like, now I'm right with you. And I think that's a good point you say about, like, the puck line, because for me, it
It's all
feels like
relative to the price, right? And
it's
minus
all
130 is a
relative,
lot different than
and
minus
I think people
155.
people on these big favorites are more prone to just being like, "Oh, well, they'll still just do it. Like, it moved 20 cents from where it was, but whatever, I don't care." Whereas I think even, like, pretty recreational bettors, if we're talking sides and a side's minus 110 compared to, like, minus 130, I think even a lot of pretty recreational bettors will be like, "Okay, that's a pretty big difference. I don't know if I like this." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, on the puck line, I think it's like, "Oh, minus 130, oh, minus 150, whatever." I think they're just gonna smash them. And then, yeah, the other note I'd say there is just that the Ducks roster, we'll see if Leo Carlson plays. I know he's been getting close for a while, but they lost Radko Gudas last night as well, who has actually had a pretty good season defensively. So, yeah, I mean, who knows? Could be more competitive than numbers suggest. Feels like these things always are in the NHL, but no doubt the Jets have every advantage possible
Yeah,
from.
and to my point, I think this game is priced right at this moment. So, when you bet the puck line at minus 130, I would have liked that bet as well, right? I think that's a good number. But, I think the minus 150-ish price is, pretty reasonable when you think, when you consider like, okay, they've got, would they cover the puck line more than 60% of the time in this game? Like, I don't know. Like, given their penchant for kind of sleepwalking a little bit versus these weaker teams, and also the fact that Anaheim's been, I guess, scrappy enough in at times, So I do obviously there's some injuries that have been kind of piling up off and on lately, but yeah, no, I just wanted to kind of point that one out. I did not know you're on the puck line, so not trying to make an ass out of Nick here, but
No,
he
and like,
got a great price.
I'm pretty balanced. Like, I know that in general they'll kind of correlate, obviously, or entirely correlate. Sometimes it's just a feel thing in terms of, like, I
For
do
sure.
kind of like the spot where it could be a blow, you know what I mean? Versus sometimes just wanting to take the shorter number.
Especially after the big letdown versus the Predators, right? And this team's been inconsistent, but they have. It seems like when they kind of do get their asses checked by the coach, that they can turn it around and come back with a pretty one sided performance, and that's what I would expect tonight too. I guess the only thing that I really want to point out in regards to the Kings and the Blackhawks, the other game that we have. You look at how the Kings have performed in these situations as a big road favorite, and they've done all right. Pretty small sample, but like all of those games were prior to the Christmas break, and that's basically when LA's struggles started, right? So, um, I think that obviously kind of correlates with why you would expect them to start struggling. They had a lot more, easy games on their schedule in the first half of the season. But it's been a while since they've had a matchup like this on the road. So kind of just curious, I guess, to see how they'll perform tonight.
Yeah, that offense definitely looks a little too stale for me to be like super interested pregame. I know the Hawks are going with Soderblom, so that could help
Yeah,
the Kings finally convert some of their chances, but it doesn't feel like an overly appealing spot to jump on a team that's just having such a hard time finishing for what has been a pretty huge sample. So yeah, I didn't really see much there either.
for sure. Yeah, and I mean, you can't. I don't, not to say you can't discount it, but like the vibes are kind of back in Chicago, right? Like this team's starting to have fun. They're going to play out the season. They're probably going to kind of relish the spoiler, role if they can play it sometimes. And so I think they're going to be an interesting team to watch down the stretch. I don't think they're going to be a team that I'm lining up to bet on by any means, but I think they could cause a few headaches just with just being too dumb to know any better, right? Like just going out there and playing hockey like they have against some of these teams lately.
Yeah, fully
Uh,
agree. And they were pretty beat up too. That's the other note. It feels like these teams that nobody watches, like nobody notices sometimes when they're down 6 or 7 NHLers.
yeah.
And then now they have like a lot of bodies back in their lineup. And yeah, it's not surprising to see them be a little scrappier.
So looking at Saturday, obviously there are quite a few marquee matchups. Talked about the Avs and the Oilers. We've got I mean the Bruins and the Flyers, the Lightning and the Panthers. Lots of big matchups, but you like the Hurricanes and the Leafs matchup for one reason or another, eh?
Yeah, I think that this price was too close. I really like where the Hurricanes are trending. It opened at minus 110 almost everywhere. I haven't seen where it's moved since we've been recording, but I would go to minus 125. I think this is just going to be one-way traffic. And the other note that I would put out there is if you're going to bet on the Leafs, I'd feel pretty comfortable just waiting to see the best numbers you can get tomorrow. I'm not really seeing who's kind of going to be interested in the Leafs at this price, especially with Marner unconfirmed. Even if Marner gets in, I still would be completely fine with the numbers that are out there. I just think that right now the Leafs have a few too many question marks for me to see this price with Marner off the power play, Marner out at even strength, and the way Carolina's going to get going. I know you had talked about how they had steamed the last 2 or 3 games this week.
You want to get out in front of it right now.
Yeah,
Like
you want to get out in front of it. And it feels like, if anything, they have more things that can go right now that can go wrong. Like the goaltending is obviously still a bit of a question mark, but it's nice to see Anderson and Kochetkov have decent form this week. Kochetkov was really good in that loss to the Rangers, and Anderson was really solid last night. So maybe you can see these goaltending concerns get a little bit alleviated right now. And then Kuznetsov has been unreal. I don't want to overrate like 3 games, but I'm already prepared to be sad as a Caps fan that it had to come to this. And then now, you
the
know,
writing was on the wall, man.
we
I mean,
talked about it. There's
he
two
was
ways this
happy,
was going to
and
go.
Moore was happy to get him. They have a little bit of familiarity from an All Star game, and Gensel was on that team as well. But I mean, I think like you look at it's just a great spot for Kuznetsov given where he's at in his career. I think yeah, like
Got some
I'm
friends
excited
on the
too.
team too. Like it was one of those, and I think it was obvious to say he wasn't in a great place in Washington anymore.
Yeah,
And it feels like he's got his head straight right now, and he's just so talented still. So he could raise the floor for them quite a bit. So yeah, we'll see how that narrative shakes out.
yeah. No, I mean Kuzi, and it's sad because two of my favorite players on the Capitals were Kuznetsov and Jacob Verana, right? Like, and both of those guys just things did not work out. And I still have hope for Verana because I think he's a great player, and not only a great player, but one of the best interviews I think I've seen
Yeah,
too.
he's
He's a
hilarious.
fun, a little too. He's obviously I'm gonna say he's a fun guy, but he's a little too fun, clearly. But but yeah. Anyways, yeah, I tend to agree with you on Carolina, especially with obviously if you're banking on Marner not being in the lineup on Saturday, then you got to bet the Hurricanes now. I didn't have much information to go on other than what's been kind of publicly out there, but it does sound like what you were saying earlier might be true in that he could have a high ankle sprain, and that would definitely change things. I make the Hurricanes a minus 109 favorite with Marner in the lineup, or sorry, with a 50-50 chance that he was in the lineup, just being uncertain. So obviously they'd be an even bigger favorite according to the model if he's out of the lineup. So yeah, I'm with you there. One team I do want to touch on is the Dallas Stars. We talked about the Kings a little bit. Well, they're in action second half of a back-to-back on Sunday against the Stars, and this Stars team has really struggled at home. We saw it again on Thursday against the New Jersey Devils, a team that hasn't been able to beat anybody as an underdog this season, really. But they smashed the Stars 5-2. The game went over pretty much the 30-minute mark, thankfully, because we had over 6.5 goals at that on that one, and we were happy with that. But this Stars team has just 10 regulation wins this season. Only the Toronto Maple Leafs have been a worse bet in regulation. Dallas, I'm just kind of home ice for me is something that I tinker with all season long, and they're a team that I've been kind of you know down rating a lot on home ice here because of this trend. And yeah, it was a bit surprising to see them fall as flat on their face yesterday as they have with Ottinger in goal. So yeah, not great for a team that has big expectations of going far in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm getting more and more worried about Ottinger by the game, so I'm right with you here. I'm a little interested in the total of 5.5. I think it's scary on a Kings game for all the reasons we kind of touched on earlier, but I still look at this like if it's going to be Rittich versus, I mean, Ottinger right now is really not playing great, and I feel like the Stars' biggest offense or biggest upside right now is their offensive play, three deep lines. So I can see it given the way the Kings tend to play, but I also feel like 5.5's pretty low on a Stars game right now. I'll
Oh
be
yeah.
kind of curious to see where some of the totals open when more of the markets are up.
Yeah, no team has gone over the total more than the Stars this season, and particularly at home. So they are 59% roughly to the over this season. And yeah, I agree with you. The Kings are on the opposite end of that spectrum, obviously, but which is why there's a little bit of trepidation there from Nick. But yeah, literally on the opposite end of the spectrum there with the LA Kings. So, but yeah, no, I see where you're going with that. Um, Dallas is not a team that I mean, the prices. I really wish that I could have seen value on the Devils yesterday because just relative to their odds on the season, that was a buy low spot for the Devils, and they played about as good as you could possibly ask for them to play. But yeah, the Stars. Hopefully, as the season goes on, Dallas's prices will come down a little bit at home, and maybe there will be an opportunity to kind of bet on this trend turning around because they are a great team, and there's no reason they should be in that position on home ice. But yeah, I mean,
The Devils
just
are
in
hard to
general,
handicap right now
they are.
too. I think they've got high upside, obviously, but it feels like it's tough to guess where they're going to be at
Feels
every
like
night.
there's outside forces just, keeping this team down right now. But to the point about, just we've talked about it a lot lately, Nick, about big favorites in regulation. And just looking at it here, uh, home money line favorites of minus 150 or more, minus 33.5 units in regulation. So yeah, your average odds are around minus 130, but you're only winning about 52% of your bets. So yeah, tough to win at that rate if you're going to bet on the chalky regulation plays. One other game that I really kind of wanted to get your thoughts on, just losing my place here, but was Oh, your Capitals and the Canucks. Of course, we've got Thatcher Demko not going to be in the lineup this weekend for the foreseeable future. Sounds like his injury isn't as maybe as bad as they first thought it might be. So he might not be out that long. But I'm going to be on Capitals or nothing here, if I'm being honest, because I think that this one should be around minus 186 in favor of the Canucks. Saw plus 190, not quite enough for me to get involved here. But this Washington team's been pretty scrappy. They're scoring a little bit. They I guess who's in goal kind of matters because Lindgren's been a lot better than Kemper this season, but Kemper's not been bad. You got to consider who even in the last game, he gets fed to the Oilers, right? And Lindgren gets the easier matchup against
Well,
the Kraken.
that's the
So
thinking. Hey, they were like, we're getting one win.
yeah,
And it's not
absolutely,
going to be
right?
in Edmonton.
So, I think you should wait on maybe a starting goaltender on this one. But I do think. Oh, and the Capitals, are they in action again against Seattle here coming up? No. But I do think, yeah, Washington or nothing. I think, yeah, they're a team that has been probably a lot better from a betting perspective than anything else, right?
Yeah, I don't mind the Caps here, and the one that I'm gonna have my kind of circled on the calendar is hoping to get them as a decent underdog Monday versus the Flames. I think that one will be interesting as well. This one I was a little more 50-50, but I'm still with you. I like to think it's closer to a bet on the Caps. They've been pretty good, and we had talked about it, but a lot of the guys that have come out of the lineup are getting like surprisingly good replacements. Like for people who've observed the team right now, the guys who are really looking good. Hendrix Lapierre is one of the main guys. Connor McMichael is one of
Yeah,
the main guys. And Miroshnichenko is like this week on this road trip, he was by far the most consistent winger. So it feels like one of those things are kind of getting driven by these young guys trying to earn their roles and their spots. So I think that kind of lends itself to undervalued in the bet or to being undervalued in the betting markets when you see guys that are not going to be well rated performing the way that they have. So I don't love this spot. I know not to try to rate that too much, but it's a little scary when you talk about the Canucks, with such a favorable rest advantage hosting after that 3-0 collapse. But
yeah.
I could never say like bet the Canucks here when I also feel like the Caps are just so capable of making games into kind of a coin flip type affair.
For sure, yeah, and speaking of Hendrix Lapierre and Connor McMichael, I we so Nick is in the same boat that I am, writing articles. He writes them for Leafs Nation. I write them for Oilers Nation. Doing some betting previews for those teams. And when they played the Capitals, the Oilers on Wednesday, I wrote up a preview and threw a little bit of shade because the previews are Betway kind of sponsored previews, but had to throw a little shade at Betway because like I get to this section where it's like player props. And I want to talk about some interesting Capitals players. And you can't even find Hendrix Lapierre in the anytime goal scorer market. You can't find Connor McMichael in some of these sports books.
Yeah.
Lapierre is playing on the top line next to Ovechkin. Like these sports books, you got to get your shit together, right? Like you got to have the odds at least on the top six, if not all of the top nine. You should really have every single player listed on a team, but just do it like more like baseball, where it's like you put everybody up and you say, hey, if they don't play, no action, right, or whatever.
Well, that's what I don't get is like if you don't feel confident, and I know you could say maybe this is predatory, but throw a stupid number up there. Like throw Lapierre plus 300 to score, see if people bet it. You know what I mean? Like who
Yeah,
cares?
they don't
You
pick it
don't.
up a little bit the next game, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't. And yeah, I'll give myself credit. I was lucky enough. I get to post obviously with action from the entire North American pool, and Miro was plus 700 to score that game, and I wrote that one up. But that was
Nice.
one of the good ones. And I should actually throw that out there. I still think he's going to continue to be bettable. I bet him again last night versus the Kraken. I thought he was full value to his price, given the amount of chances he's creating. So if he's
Yeah.
hanging around that 6-1, I think you just keep your eye on that for sure.
And that's the other thing, man. I mean, like when you get into the nitty gritty of the player props, like I very rarely am going to want to talk about any superstar related player prop, like unless maybe a shot total or something sometimes. Um, but like I'm always looking at guys down in the lineup. I'm looking at guys that are not household names. If I'm betting in any time, like Ryan McLeod, for example, if you want to bet on Ryan McLeod to score an anytime goal. I know he hasn't been great offensive, but if he wanted to do something like that, if he gets an opportunity, if he's moved up in the lineup, or a Warren Fogle or somebody like that, these players are out there at 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, 8-1, even like stuff like that, especially for McLeod. Fogle not so much anymore, obviously, but and then but if you go and actually compare sportsbook to sportsbook, um it varies pretty significantly. Like you can get where one sports book where you'll see McLeod at 3-1 to score a goal, and another sportsbook has him at plus 750. Like that's a huge difference, and kind of makes it hard to talk about, especially if you're kind of confined to talking about a couple of sports books in an article or something like that.
It
But
completely
yeah,
does. Yeah, that
the
I was just
just
gonna
the shopping around thing, especially for player props, for sure.
Yeah, and the books have gotten a lot sharper, obviously. I'm sure you're aware too. Like the one we gave out, so Bunting in his games with Pittsburgh's gone from plus 150 first night, plus 130 in Ottawa to go over 2.5. And then I gave out, and obviously a matchup versus the Sharks is part of it. But I was saying anything better than even money on line change, which we record on Wednesday, would be my play. And then the lines come out, he's minus 125. So over 3 games, he's gone plus 150, plus 130, minus 125. And that's grabbing like best available number. So yeah, the way
And they
obviously
don't come
legalized.
back a lot of the time either. Even if a guy, so if like I'm curious what Corey Perry's anytime goal odds, because I remember looking at him when he came into the Oilers lineup. He was plus 325 against Nashville in the first game to score a goal. He had I don't think he scored for the first couple of games. And then he went on a stretch where he scored like 3 goals in 4 games or something. And his odds went from plus 325 down to like plus 250. And then he was there for like a number of games after that. Like, and he probably stayed there. I'm curious as to where he is now, but I think that's the thing that happens a lot, because a lot of these sports books, it's a one-sided market, right? It's will he score a goal? It's not will he or won't he score a goal. You can't bet on the no goal or the under at a lot of these places. So there's no correction on the other side, right? It's just these players get bet, they get bet down, the price discovery happens, and then if they stop scoring and nobody's betting on them, there's no real driver to push those odds back the other way. But yeah, pretty much. I think that pretty much does it for today's episode of the Puck Portfolio. 3 bets for me locked in for Saturday earlier in the show. I guess just gonna check and see what we're looking at now. So the Sabres still available at plus 110 to beat the Red Wings. Nashville still available at minus 110 to beat the Seattle Kraken. Both of those are 1-unit plays. Nashville to win 1 unit, Buffalo risking 1 unit. And then the Oilers still available at minus 119 at NorthStar Bets to win 1 unit against the Colorado Avalanche. But like, as I said, DraftKings, FanDuel opening up minus 130. Some of the other offshore spots opening up at minus 125. Nick, you had a couple of plays. You want to recap those?
Yeah, still high on the Hurricanes. They're out. I think there's still some minus 110s out there offshore. So
yeah, I'll check as you're going here.
So yeah, right around that. But I would go to minus 125. I see FanDuel's
minus 115 at NorthStar Bets, minus 120 elsewhere. FanDuel up to minus 122.
Yeah, and then I guess actually, is that it out of the ones that we haven't touched on?
I guess you had some leans.
I like that over, and that one I'm going to dig into a little bit more for. I think that could end up being a full play, but I think that's it out of the ones that you didn't give out. I like the Preds. I think that number moves and is the right play. And I guess the other lean that I didn't throw out there that we won't really elaborate on, but I would be interested in Montreal. Especially,
I was hoping they'd be a bigger dog, to be honest, because I saw one sportsbook that I was like, so I'll just disclose what I'm talking about, I guess, is SI Sportsbook, Sports Illustrated Sportsbook, puts odds out before anybody else. Their odds are always terrible. I don't even know where they're at, what jurisdiction they're available in, but they're some of the most, like, they're ridiculous, like the odds that they put out. But they put Montreal out at plus 175. So that just kind of got my brain going, like, oh man, what if we got some plus 165, plus 170 on the Canadians? But clearly that's not going to happen. Would have loved that.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't mind them. I think the bottom's kind of out on the Flames. I know they played good last night.
Let's, before we go, tell me about the Flames, because obviously big win against the Vegas Golden Knights on Thursday. What's up with this team?
Yeah, first off, I mean, what is up with the Knights? Because I thought they were pretty lucky to get that win in Seattle, right? That was a pretty ugly win.
That killed me. Seattle,
I think everyone was there. I don't know if you, but like, I locked in
I was there.
Knights on Monday, and And then I watched the game. I was like, holy crap, I can't even complain. This is just, and then there's
Oh, I was on
obviously,
Seattle at
oh, you got
you
screwed
got the
then.
Knights earlier.
Yeah,
I got the Kraken later,
yeah.
after the move,
And
and
then last night they were terrible. And I know there's a lot of parts moving in and out of the lineup. They're trying to figure out the way things are going to work and so on. But I feel like it's been another pretty discouraging week so far. And hopefully we see more of the same, because I actually I don't have any Knights positions, and I'm just like, if they can not be in the West, that'd be awesome. So, and like just a fun story as a fan. But yeah, from the Flames perspective, I just feel like they're eventually going to trend down here, because the decor, which was such a strength, isn't what it was. And I think in time that's going to hurt them. They proved me wrong last night, but I still think that there's going to be a lot of spots to fade the Flames. I look at the way they match up versus a team like Montreal right now. I don't really see the edges that make them this heavy of a favorite. I feel like that's kind of a lot about reputation. Maybe you could say it's a bit of a scary like spot, because I know they kind of just got destroyed on that Eastern swing that everyone does so bad on, or a lot of these weaker teams. But I still look at this, and it's hard for me to see how they're priced at a current number of minus 182. So definitely the Habs
yeah.
are pass on for me on that one.
Oh wow, maybe I'll have to reevaluate. So, like I think this should be. Yeah, so I'm right on the cuff. So NorthStar has minus 161 in favor of Calgary, plus 132 for the Canadians. Now we've got FanDuel opening up at plus 150 on Montreal. That's right where my model has it, minus 150 for the Flames. So yeah, we creep up to plus 157 ish. I'm on the Habs to beat the Flames, but we'll see if that goes that way. I doubt it. I don't know why anybody would push the Flames any higher, but stranger things have happened. Before we get out, I do want to say again just how bad, because you got me fired up about it. Just even mentioning the Kraken from Tuesday, they're just so bad, and like I don't think I've factored in, and I've got to look at that in the future as like, am I factoring in just how much of an auto loss they are when they go to overtime, because they cannot score a 3-on-3 goal. They've scored one 3-on-3 goal since the end of October. So, I mean, they're 4-10 in overtime. They've got 3 shootout wins, 1 overtime win since the start of November. So, yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
this team is just
they did
so
hit
bad.
the post, as I'm sure you're aware, like right before the Knights game
Obviously, some
winner.
bad luck for
Yeah,
sure, and whatnot. You don't do that, but like, just I had to stop watching them in like mid-November, and I kind of forgot that they were like, or I kind of let the trend get away from me, where I kind of stopped being reminded of how bad they were. But I didn't stop watching them because they were just simply losing. I stopped watching them because it was impossible to watch them at 3-on-3 and not want to like throw something through your TV if you had money on them, because they are the most risk averse 3-on-3 group that I've seen in the NHL since they installed 3-on-3 overtime. But anyway, thanks for joining the show today, everybody. Like the video if you had not already, and subscribe to the Canada Sports Betting YouTube channel. Good luck with your bets. Thanks for joining us, Nick. We'll see you next week.
yeah. Thanks for having me, Andy.